Them all in contention for the win at times. However, a lone Brit has bested them all twice now. After Japan and the United States have put forth famous circuits, it is now Hungary's turn to see if it can trip them up. Let's see who keeps their footing as we get ready to watch round 3 of the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Jake Sperry. Behind the scenes is our director, Robert O'Brien, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. The Hungaroring was about 8 years too late for the Lotus 79, but it certainly has felt like a great fit for this machine. Let's head to our track guide to find out why. Welcome to the Hungaroring. Situated just northeast of Budapest, this Grand Prix circuit has racked up a stunning history in just a little more than 30 years of existence. Its biggest claim to fame was holding the first Formula One race inside the Iron Curtain at a time when the Cold War was at its peak. But most fans don't associate this 2.7-mile or 4.38-kilometer track with politics. No, its 14 turns make it tight and twisty with a reputation for few places to overtake. For a long time, it was renowned for processional races in which qualifying is of the utmost importance. But the past couple decades have seen a litany of utterly wild and unpredictable races that greatly overshadow the single-file events of before. The majority of passing takes place into Turn 1, while some battles do carry on into Turn 2. But be careful about how greedy you get, because the steep drop in elevation makes it easy to go wide. Other than that, Turn 12 is often the only other realistic place to sneak by your opponent. Perhaps the scariest and trickiest of the corners is 4, which presents a blind and crooked entry into a high-speed flick. Though modern times have seen a paved runoff added to it to make it safer, that's considered out of bounds, and drivers will find themselves being told to give back time if they abuse the exit. Built with fans in mind, the track sits in a natural bowl, allowing great views from most sides of the venue. It's easy to see why it's become a fan favorite on the F1 calendar, and there's little doubt it'll continue to see lots of racing for years to come. Well, Jake, a track that is known for being tight and twisty with a car that is notorious for literally sucking itself to the track. I feel like this is going to be a great combination.
I certainly think so as well here, Joe. This is a track which, can you believe it, is 35 years old at this point in time. It was made behind the Iron Curtain back in the day, and a track which, for all intents and purposes, only lacks one thing in my mind, and that's an incredibly long straight to get overtakes done. The front straight will be the main place you see the overtakes, the extended section in towards turn number 1, but that in itself is going to be a difficult challenge on a track which, that entire middle sector from the chicane all the way down to about turn number 12 out on circuit is going to be pretty much processional at this point in time. Track position is key. Qualifying could be the most important it will be all season long.
We'll keep an eye on that in a second. Before we get to that qualifying, though, let's take a look at the championship order. And, well, as I mentioned, Andy T has taken 2 wins, so, of course, he's leading the way by about 16 points. Karjalainen, Deturk, and Toika are trailing a little bit behind, but Kayla's been consistent, getting himself onto the podium each time so far, along with Andy, so he could be his main rival this season. We have, of course, the Classic Teams Championship, and, Jake, how is that one sitting?
Well, it seems like the Arrows team are looking pretty good. The team of De Turk and De Fresne doing pretty well, 57 points. They've got 5 over the Ligier team of Partanen and Moreland. And then it's following that Ferrari, Shadow. And then it's the JPT Lotus team with Suarez and Herner there as they try and make that push. 13 points splitting the top 5. It's early doors right now. Expect that championship to just extend a little bit between now and the end of the season.
Absolutely. And, well, let's take a look at the race details for today. And as we said this is round 3, 30 laps that they're going to be racing around here. It's an open setup, but you have to think that a lot of people are going to be cranking the downforce in. But the big thing is no spare car to save you if you find yourself getting a little bit of damage out there, which is easy to do, even though it's a modern Grand Prix track. Plenty of close barriers around this place. They also have some penalties, and with it being a modern Grand Prix track, they do have some runoff that is paved, which means it could be easy to rack those up if you go a little bit too wide. So watch out for a drive-through at 17 and disqualification at 25. We're just getting cars onto the track now for our qualifying, and it looks like we've got Andy T back once again, but also have Freisha and Kayla, two of the fast drivers that you need to watch out for.
And there's one more as well, and it is the Pro Stripe, who managed to qualify this year in the iRacing, the Dallara Force Dynamics iRacing Grand Prix Championship, that being Andreas Henkel as well in the number 4. So this is a star-studded field today that we have got, and drivers up and down the order are going to be trying to put their best possible foot forward here. We are, of course, on the 2nd of January, so not everybody's back in the swing of things, but if you want to start off your year correctly, Joe, a victory here today in this Sunday series would be a great way to put your best foot forward.
Certainly would, and Andy T, as I mentioned, has seemed very difficult to beat, so we're expecting a little bit of the same today, but maybe some have upped their game, and we'll see Andy out there on track right now. He works his way around the back portion of this circuit and heading towards one of the few other places where we could potentially see passes down into turn 12, but they're quite rare, and it takes maybe a little bit of a mistake to see that one happen. I think he might be on his outlap here. Not sure if this is his first flyer yet.
I believe with 8 minutes here to set a time, this would be the outlap, so he's gearing it up, and this is really important, how you gear up the start of your lap. You've got this long 180-degree right, and you're going to see a lot of drivers here pushing to the extremities of the circuit, trying to diamond off the exit, get to level straight with the wheel as quickly as possible. You can see already on this run a slight downhill dip towards turn number 1, a very tough braking zone here, and it's so easy just to outdo it and even spin on the curb on the exit. But Andy T, professional as he is, able to keep the car nice and straight in towards turn number 2 now, down the hill. Watch for drivers trying to run the outside line during the race here, Joe. This is one of the other places on the track where you can really fight as the climb up the hill begins.
Right, so as we watch him now once again get to that back half where we joined him last time. You mentioned that chicane, and here could be a trouble zone with that tall curb on the second apex of it. Let's watch. This is a perfect position to see it. There it is right there. That orange bump. Don't want to run over that. We've seen drivers hop curbs in this car before, and, well, Jake, it's not the best of ideas.
No, it certainly isn't. When you've got a ground effect car and you take that away, as Pauli Kalevi-Partanen sets the fastest time out there at the moment, a 31.414. The key to this car is keep it on the ground. You've got that ground effect for a reason. It plants the car, it gives you more grip. The moment you get up over a high curb, you're going to be in all sorts of trouble with the downforce levels. So that's always something to keep in mind. T, you can see, just in total control. He's having small movements, a little bit of counter steer through the final corner, and his first time on the board is about 4/10 quicker than anyone else.
Whew. Well, I said you got to watch out for him. Partanen, don't forget him, though. Certainly seems to be doing pretty decent. However, Marco Kayla, his first lap, a 31.275. That'll be good enough to put him onto the front row ahead of Partanen. He comes around for his second try at things. I'm seeing who else is getting ready to set at times. Looks like Jukka Tolinen is going to be our next one through.
Yep, so you're starting to see these times just rolling in, and with the time they have, and actually how short of a lap this is, it's 1.5 minutes. You do get this stage of laps coming in. It's not a sense of, say, for example, Spa-Francorchamps, where it takes 2.5 minutes to outlap and then you've got yourself that mad flurry to make sure you get 2 laps in. As Mikko Leno here makes that run in 4th position at the moment. It really does show you where the class of the field is at the moment. It's about 9/10 of a second here, splitting 1st to 4th, which shows you how strong the field is. That's a 31.8. It's an improvement, but crucially not by much.
So Duturk's got some work to do, as now we take a look at Timothy Reed here in 8th position, fittingly with the number 8 on his car as well. He's coming around the last couple corners of 32.1 on his first try, and he's got to make up, it looks like, about half a tenth just to get by Duturk. Oh, but a big bobble coming out of turn 13 is not going to help. In fact, he's going to park it even in turn 14.
Yeah, that's how quickly a lap can fall away. The moment you just get out of shape in this machine, it really does fight back. That's a 1.97 from Marco Kayla, and that is good enough to remain in second. He brought the gap down to 1/10 with that lap, so really to show you how everyone's trying to put the right time together. This is Jukka Tolvanen in the number 7 machine, 9th position, making a drive, and I tell you what, 0.2 of a second and he's in the top 5.
Let's watch and see what his second lap holds, a 32.096. And that will unfortunately do no better than 9th for him. And I think I just saw Teemu Toika pop up there. And yes, his first lap didn't count. So this second one was a major one for him, 32.012. That'll put him into 5th. So Fat Teemu is not going to be denied.
He certainly is not, fan favourite as he is, and every time he puts it on the grid, he knows he's got his fans out there who are very happy to watch. Geno Friche moving up into 11th position then in the number 1 car. It's nice to see him back in racing and putting those times in on the board, but at this point in time, you'd say we are right on the limits here of what you can manage. Severi Seppa out there now in the number 5 car. Surprised to see him down in 13th position here, but it's so congested here in this mid-pack. He knows that 4/10 of a second, he's top 5. He's down in 13th position at the moment, and a 2:12 is only good enough for 11th.
Surprisingly low for Seppa, honestly. Timo Karjalainen, who we've been watching here for a second, has yet to set a time as well, so that first lap must have gotten deleted with maybe a run a bit too wide. And pressure is on for him to try and do something quick as he works his way towards turn 11. Swift right-hander, easy to go wide here. Car looks a little bit loose, but he holds on to it. Now they're down to turn 12. Going to be one of our last drivers to set a time of our 25 that have joined us. This is top split, so this is the best of the best in this car.
I tell you what, he's not driving the car's driving him with the way that he's going around this place. There's not many cars on the iRacing service that drive you instead of the other way around. Again, having to deal with so much torque in the rear tyres as he makes that drive to the line here, Joe. And that is a 6.33. That is clutch to go to the second row.
Nicely done. And that will complete our qualifying, so let's go through our starting order here today. Andy T has put it on the pole yet again, as Marco Kayla will start next to him. Pauli Partanen will be P3. Timo Karjalainen, and his last gasp, puts himself into 4th. Mikko Leno will be P5 with Teemu Toika in the 6th position. Then it's Peter Konecny in 7th. You've got Andreas Henkel to his outside with Michael Duturk on row 5, flanked by Jukka Tolvanen.
And then over to row number 6, where Timothy Reed finds himself situated. Severi Seppa in 12th with Geno Friche 13th, along with Benoit Daisy there in 14th. Dylan Freckleton, not bad for him, in 15th, with Sebastian Moran in 16th position. Pablo Suarez and Isaac Snyder make up row number 9. Row 10 will have Javier Mosquera and probably one of the great drivers in this series who's always here, Barry West.
Thomas Buchek in 21st will be followed by Karthik Pai in 22nd, Dominic Tower, then Stefan Bordas and David Fuentes of our 25 drivers. Everybody managed to get a time in, thankfully, so hopefully should be pretty representative for the entire fields. And we heard Jake mention just how important that grid position is. And it's quite hot here today, 97 Fahrenheit on the track surface, 36 Celsius. We've seen hotter, but they'll be slipping and sliding around as we saw a few of them do there in that qualifying, Jake.
Absolutely, and it's this sort of area where the tyres do become an issue, because this is a very high-intensity circuit for these tyres, so maybe that drop-off could be key to manage this race between now and the end. 20 seconds before we start.
You got to think cranking an even more wing might be the answer then. The more you slide this thing around, don't want to overheat those tires, and it looks like everybody's out there as the engines start to rev and the lights come up. The green flag is out. Off the line once again, as he usually does. Marco Kala struggles a little bit to get the car rolling. Partanen already coming up around his outside as they stream down the hill into turn 1. Can Partanen take this away from the Finn? He's going to try, but he gets squeezed out onto the paved runoff behind him. Not seeing any issues. It looks like we're clean.
It certainly does. With so many Finnish drivers in the field, you'd wonder if there'd be a Valtteri Bottas bowling alley into turn 1. There absolutely wasn't, because they're the best of the best in this field. Up towards turn number 3 and now starting to run. It's been a nice start. It's tough, but a bit of side-by-side, and in fact almost as Timothy Reed and Severi Seppa tried to go, but T has got his work cut out already, and this is going to be one where he's going to be looking behind for the majority of the race. He's got Partanen there in second, Karjalainen in third, Toika is back there, in 5th position, Marco Kala, in second. But what a challenge it is going to be. It's about positioning and staying in range. This is what's going to win this race.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit of a train forming, maybe not necessarily behind T, but somewhere in this front group as somebody could have maybe gotten a position. It was slightly out of place, already getting ready to complete lap 1 soon here. And funny you mentioned the Valtteri Bottas moment. Our very first race that we covered here on GSRC, we did have exactly that, with the car plowing into multiple others into turn 1. Thankfully, we are clean. In fact, I'm not seeing any major issues through the field on this first lap. So it is T leading Kala, with Partanen trailing in third, being closely pressured by Karjalainen.
Absolutely, and this is where you're seeing Karjalainen really show his talent right now. He'd want to be on the podium. It's a little early to think about the end result, but he's certainly there, and you're starting to see what makes this difficult, what makes this racing circuit difficult, is that they don't have any of the modern, shall we say, aids that give yourself a little bit of help, that give you an opportunity. That's not going to be the easiest thing to do it. You have to do it on raw talent in this field, and I think that's going to be something very crucial, as you can see that rise up the hill. This is what makes this circuit so very, very great to lap, but very difficult to pass.
Yeah, I think the only drag reduction they have is trying to tuck themselves lower in the seat a little bit. It's been a close battle behind this group up at the front, with Jukka Tolinen back in 8th position, fending off Knesny as well as Seppa, who we suspected maybe a little bit farther down than what his pace usually merits. They've also got Timothy Reed and Andreas Henkel in that group, as we continue to watch from on board Karjalainen down through turn 11 once again. He is staying tucked right underneath that rear wing, but he's not close enough into turn 12.
Absolutely. That's one of the other places you can make it happen. If you get a great S's section run, you can attack turn 12. You can make that an opportunity. But as you can see through 13 and in towards turn 14 here, this right-hander to end the lap, 180 degrees, always ragging on those left-hand side tyres as you try and put the power down as early as possible. It's going to be a case, really, for Pauli Partanen. He's got to stay in range of Marco Kala. If he loses that range, if he drops outside of about 1.3 seconds, he's going to be in trouble. He has a huge slide there as he goes through turn number 1. And that is going to be costing him a little bit of time. He really is trying to get as much as he can. Bit of side-by-side in the back. That says Severi Seppa under pressure, because that is Knesny trying to look down to the inside here to defend the position. But Seppa gets it done. Reed and Henkel are able to capitalise.
Not quite yet, at least. And coming up to turn 4, yeah, just not enough momentum in the hands of Timothy Reed, though he gets mighty close, maybe too close as he slides now, and Henkel thinks about it as they hit turn 5, but there is just nowhere to go in this tight and twisty track. They are going to stay put.
Absolutely, and the most dangerous thing about turn 5 isn't the nature of the corner, it's the fact that if you go off wide there's a slow down penalty, and that is part of the iRacing system here, where if you cut the course and gain a noticeable advantage, you'll have to give that time back up on the circuit, and it's very much a formula that works some places and doesn't, and this is one of the places where it doesn't work. Here comes the look, though, again, just behind. That was Henkel again trying to find a way past Timothy Reed, not quite getting there, but this forecast scrap for the final spots in the top 10. Oh, big wiggle, and out wide goes Timothy Reed. He finds out why this car isn't maybe the easiest to deal with on mechanical grip.
Andreas Henkel sneaking through and getting himself up into 11th with that one. So we're seeing a few mistakes allow drivers to try and sneak by as Andy T now takes the fastest lap of the race, still leading his teammate Kayla down into the first turn there between Henkel and Reed, not able to fight back. And Dylan Freckleton does not look like a standard Lotus 79 right now. Not sure that's the way it's supposed to drive.
No, I think he's got drift spec on at the moment. He's had an issue up at turn 5, has been the issue. It was all on his own. He's been caught out by the outside curbs. He's very fortunate. I think he's got a secondary tap as well. So we'll go with this then over the course of the lap here with the GSRC replay, Joe. And it's just a case for Dylan that he gets himself in all sorts of trouble up at turn 5, and this is why the track can bite back.
Yeah, that is a common one. You see drivers unfortunately having issues as we hop on board with him. Here it is, coming up here. It's a swift left-hander through turn 4 that is very blind. It's got paved runoff, but the curbs often really trip the drivers up, and yep, that seems to be the case. And bang into it. He is going to hit the barrier with a big thunk, and then he gets an extra one from someone coming up. Not sure who that was, though.
In the green there, so I think it was Isaac Snyder who actually got the hit there, so that wouldn't have been ideal at all. I think he's okay to continue going, so no harm, no foul, play on as it is. But Andy T has just in the last couple of laps here, Joe, turned the screw. That is a 32.6, it's the fastest lap of the race. He put half a second on Marco Kayla that last lap by and has broken out over a second.
Yeah, it's starting to look to me like Marco Kayla's best hope is going to be a mistake out of Andy T. Otherwise, he's got to hope that maybe his car is a little bit better late in the run as he goes a little wide down through turn 3. So Kayla picking up one of those incident points that we mentioned a little bit earlier, as Andy T leads currently by about 9/10 of a second over his fellow Raccoon Racing driver.
Certainly does, and he's proving to be a very tricky customer to keep in check at this point in time. You can see the top 6 all on screen right now, split by about 5.8 seconds out there at the moment, going back to Jukka Tolonen actually, all the way back in 8th place, you could say. So there's certainly a lot of work, but the gap is between Karjalainen and Mikko Leino. So behind Leino, you've got Toika, De Turk, and Tolonen, who are all there trying to get this focus in. As you can see, Jukka Tolonen trying to work the McLaren car, the McLaren liveried Lotus 79, I should say, through into another position. Can't quite manage it, but you can see De Turk absolutely ragging on the rear tyres, trying to get to that limited grip there and get everything pushed through. One of the things I find it, Joe, with iRacing, it's really difficult for a new driver to learn is where the limit of grip is. This is one of the few cars where you absolutely have to know where it is.
A little bit of a look to the inside down at a turn 1 from Tolonen, but nothing doing there. Good news for Turk is he is definitely not a newbie, both in this car or on iRacing. Down into turn 2, another look down to the inside. Tolonen really wants to try and shake him loose, but Michael is having none of it. He is yet to flinch.
And the nature of this track as well, a lot of the hairpin style corners are very open and parabolic, and that's going to make life very difficult to make a pass, because if you have an open style parabolic hairpin, it leaves that room to remain too wide that you can put the power on the exit and sacrifice somewhere and gain somewhere else. It was, I would say, very in vogue in the 80s when this track was built, and not very much the same to, for example, the Spitzkurve over at Hockenheim, which is a very closed style hairpin.
Yeah, just those long, sweeping 180-degree turns. And they come along the back half on to turns 11 and 12 now, and Jukka Tolonen drops back a little bit. First half of the course, he was right on top of him, but it seems this one, he is not nearly as strong. And the last two, let's see if he starts to close up yet again. Maybe it's like you said, he likes those long corners is behind them. Big problem for Konechny as Hankel is going to go side by side with him and giving watch Timothy Reed from behind. That is going to be Konechny who comes out ahead into 10th place.
Henkel's being too passive here. He had a look into 12, backed out of it. Big mistake at 13, backed out of it. And now he's looking behind him here because Timothy Reed's trying to think of a way back through. And there's a mistake then from Konechny again, who's completely out of shape right now with Henkel. Again, can't make it happen here through one. So you've got to have another look here into this left-hander to try and guarantee it. And the chance is gone. You have to take your chances here at the Hungaroring. They come a dime a dozen. And then he's got to wait another dozen laps, it seems, to get that back.
And remember, we mentioned those trains. Frisha is now joining them, so 4 cars in a line. Gernot Frisha not looking like he's enjoying this course today. He looked pretty fast at Japan and actually went pretty fast in spite of damage for a good chunk of the race. But here today, there have been not much in the way of inroads in these first 7 laps and is still stuck firmly in the mid-pack, the former champion.
Well, this is one of the newer circuits, and Gernot has been around for an incredibly long time in the sim racing world. He's one of those drivers who can just turn up and perform in these classic machines, but he knows he's got a long road ahead of him today, that drivers are going to be tiptoeing around because this is one of the designs of circuit as well here, Joe, that is on, I would say, the stricter limits of the iRacing limit system. So instant points, penalty points, they could be coming into play. Andy T goes purple again. So you have to be absolutely in the lines. There is no margin for error. You can use the curbs. But outside of that, the moment you drift off the circuit, all 4 wheels, that's a point. You only get 17 before a drive-through penalty.
And look at that. Marco Kayla just consistently losing out. Lap 4, though, was his worst, with a full half a second dropping back from his teammate. But the trend is not in favor of the Finn, as the Brit looks like he might go 3 for 3 at the start of this season. As it sits right now, still a lot of racing left to go, so anything could change. We're still watching Hankel chasing Konechny, and despite both of them having errors here and there, neither's been able to change positions. I almost feel like Timothy Reed is sitting in the best spot here, just waiting for those two to continue to have their little offs and slides and maybe pick up pieces.
Yeah, that definitely seems that way. You can see actually how dirty it is coming out of that chicane, how drivers are pushing the limits and are really going at it. I would say hell for leather. That's a little bit of a mistake there from just behind moving through. We go on board and charge through. That's Andreas Henkel really trying to put everything together. But you're seeing how this track is starting to get muddied up through certain corners here, Joe. That's what we like to call, and you've been here and know it as much as I do, the iRacing dynamic track, and how that dirt gets dragged onto the circuit, makes the surface a bit more slipperier, less grippy, a lot tougher to put the same lap after lap in.
It always seems to build up at that chicane as well, which is probably the last place they really want to see a slippery course. Down the front stretch, they all start to pull away, so not expecting much in the way of pass attempts down into turn 1 this time amongst this group. In fact, it is getting closer in front of them, with Tolinen getting close to the gearbox of Deturk, but they're also getting close to Fat Timu. Another little look. That early entry is very much favored by Tolinen so far.
Well, you get 2 styles of driving when it comes to these styles of hairpins. Do you want to focus on entry or do you want to focus on exit? You've got Tolinen, for example, who loves to emphasize the entry off. There goes Timo Toika into the barriers, and his race pretty much all done, as everyone now has to really jostle to get themselves back into play.
Thankfully, Toika stays put, doesn't make himself a moving target, and is able to get going. But we're going to watch the replay. I suspect it's those curbs on the outside once again, and especially in such a low-slung car that has to be sucked directly to the track. They don't look like much, Jake, but, I mean, that's twice now we've seen them spit cars out.
Well, it doesn't look like much, but you have to remember they are sawtooth-style curbs on the outside. They are the ultimate style of curb to go through. And when you've got a car that's really, I would say, precedented on that ground effect that you see going through. You get over those sawtooth curbs, Joe. You get that little bit of oscillation. You get air underneath the car that puts the car back up, and then suddenly you're losing all that downforce and the car is spiraling towards the inside.
Well, everybody's spiraling away from this man, Andy T, who has got himself a gap of about 0.8 of a second. Actually, I need to check to see if that last lap was quicker. It was indeed by about 0.2 by Marco Kayla. So maybe he's finally gathered it up and is trying to get closer, but everybody else is very much falling away. It's up to over 2 seconds for Partanen, 3 seconds for Karjalainen. And then you get back to Leno, and it is a whopping 7 seconds back to the number 13 car.
Certainly is, and you're seeing here how the top 4 have driven away, and it will be a race between them for not only the victory but the podium as well. You can see just how committed Kayla is, making that run through the sweeping sections in the back half of the circuit, because he is trying to put everything together to close up to Andy T. You get this in terms of racing, that some drivers come into their own and find that sense of rhythm. I think Marco Kayla's needed a few laps to understand what this circuit is like, follow Andy T around, and now he's got the understanding of what he needs to do on this circuit. I think he'll have the ability to go out there and maybe pressure the car number 2, Andy T, and give that opportunity to go and make this a race here on lap 11 of 30.
Well, and we mentioned it briefly earlier. This is a car that changes handling as it goes along through the race. So some drivers' cars really come alive at the end. Others maybe start to struggle. Gernot Frischa, really notorious for that, having a car set up well for the end of the race. Wonder if Marco Kayla is taking a page from his book here and is starting to find himself get stronger and stronger. Another 0.2 taken out last lap. And it's starting to point towards that as Marco Kayla is making sure that Andy T has to work for this one.
Absolutely, and this is what we see there as he takes a very, very important line going through that turn number 5 and in towards the chicane. The key as well to that is how much fuel are they using and how is the car going to respond to the certain fuel levels in the car. This is the sort of car where the amount of fuel that's in the tank, you look at it, as much as it shrinks down to focus on third position here on Pauli-Kalevi Partanen, the key is that as the fuel goes away, this car's going to get lighter, it's going to get more squirrely, the power is going to affect the way that you drive the car more. Do you want a car that's very, very settled over the start of the race? Or do you want a car that's settled at the end of the race? I'd take a settled car, Joe, at the end of the race any day of the week.
Same here, because those tires are going to be going out underneath you. I'm with you. I'd rather try and be able to bring it home nice and safe at the end. As this has been creeping closer, it's not quite a battle yet. Michael de Turk and Jukka Tolinen have been mighty close to one another, and so have those behind him, Seppa, Konecny, Hankel, and Reed. We've been watching them here and there for much of this race. They stream down the front stretch once again. De Turk with an excellent exit out of the final turn, keeps himself very safe. Those behind him much closer as they all accordion back together.
There's safety in numbers, some would say, and leading the train, I'd certainly say, is the best place to be at this point in time. Michael de Turk's been getting on with his race. You can see now moving through this corner, Timothy Reed and Andreas Henkel still once again in line, trying to figure out where they need to be. But the key now, if you're in a pack like this, is how do you pick off a position one at a time? It's very difficult to overtake. We've seen it so far today. The opportunities are few and far between. Got to try and find a way to pick up a 10th through a corner somewhere and then just follow and effectively drive like you're on a tow bar, for example, trying to keep yourself in play for that overtaking opportunity into turn number 1.
Riding on board with Reed behind Hankel here. He was very close through turns 4, 5, and 6, but doesn't look like he's got anything at this portion. Instead, it's Hankel who starts to approach the gearbox of Peter Konecny now in that bright yellow machine. Getting off to the right-hand side for turn 13, trying to square that one off, gets very close and starts to squirm under power. Hankel is getting anxious now. Both of them going very wide on entry, trying to square it off. Another little wiggle on the power from Konecny, and unfortunately that's going to hurt him, as now getting very close. Hankel has got an opportunity. Does he try and dive up the inside? He's going to think about it, but no, he stays in line. A small defense from Konecny as they enter the turn.
Best offense, though, is a good defense, and you'd say at the moment, Andreas Henkel was figuring that he was going to go deep into turn one. He managed to gather it up fantastically under braking, did Konechny, and that has got him sorted then through this next section. I'll tell you what, he's been reading Renault L for about the last 8 laps. Surely he wishes he had a new book to read.
No doubt. And he's hoping that Vettel helmet helps him along as he comes through turn 5 once again, and has definitely got the pressure on for Peter Konechny here, but he's dealing with a little bit of damage. I suspect that's not affecting him too much from what the drivers have told us in the past. Look at the front left of that wing, just a little bit bent up. I'm guessing a curb strike somewhere along the way just kind of knocked it loose.
Yeah, definitely seems that way, and that will slightly be affecting the way that he goes around those corners, not by much, but they can see the much cleaner and, I would say, pristine front wing that Konechny's got as he's on the back of Severi Seppa at this point in time, and again, he just takes that aggressive line on the inside, does Konechny, trying to get what he wants. Andy T, fastest lap of the race, 32.454, expect him to continue to tumble over the course of this race, but what you're seeing right now is Konechny trying to put that power down, get aggressive into the corner, almost scare in the mirror someone like Severi Seppa into a mistake. It's effectively in the how-to basic guide to run a sim race. It's not working at the moment because everyone's read the book, but at some point, someone's concentration might drop and it might work.
They've still got half this race left to go, so yeah, there's going to be plenty of opportunities, no doubt, down plunging through turn 2. Something not talked about as much, but there is a good amount of elevation change, and unfortunately for Konechny, it's not just elevation change, but a little bit of a bump that sends him out of turn 3 and into the barriers.
It's just too aggressive through turn 3. He takes the curve, and we've been talking again about the curves. It's not the one that you'd expect, though, around this track. It's a case of he's trying to keep all the power down. The car's completely loaded, trying to turn into turn 3. And when he gets a little bit of air underneath it, you can see he gets a little bit of air. And all of a sudden, the car is completely unsettled. The entire downforce is thrown off. And he's trying to catch the tank slapper. Too late, too late.
Slap in the face with the barrier instead. And that is going to send him well down the order. So Peter Konechny continues on, thankfully, as we jump up to Timo Karjalainen. We've only had 2 DNFs, we should mention, Toika and Freckleton. And the only 2 out, so 23 runners still rolling with David Fuentes, the last amongst them. And Timo is suddenly getting very interested in the position of Pauli Partanen, thinking that he could potentially get himself onto the podium. Looking from inside the cockpit here at the number 6's driver. So he comes out of turn 3 up towards turn 4 now, and Karjalainen falls back a little bit. Can't see it from that angle. There we go. And he regains it through this part of the course, but just seems to be yo-yoing back and forth between these two. And they're still not too far behind our leaders, Marco Kayla and Andy T, about 2 seconds separating them at the moment. So it's all still to play for, and I'm impressed that they've been able to hold on to the top 2 with the pace they've been setting.
Yeah, it's been really, really impressive to see here, Joe. It's not been the best last lap from Partanen. He was about 4/10 off the pace and struggled through turn 1. That's why it all went apart. But they've all been running in and around the same times at this point. So they've definitely got something that everyone else hasn't. I saw someone at the end of qualifying talking about it. It was Konechny actually saying, is there a shortcut that we don't know about? Because they were so quick in their qualifyings, these top 4. So you start to wonder here. They've certainly got something set up. And again, Kayla, fastest lap of the race, 32.2, brings the gap down to half a second. But here comes the chance for Karjalainen. Oh, he had a thought there in under the braking zone, but immediately jumped back into line.
He knows it's got to be closer than that. He's not willing to pull a risky move quite yet, but he is just stalking him from behind. As you can see, these low-slung cars hover their way around, and that's a big slide out of Partanen. He's still trying to catch it. The car is all over the place. Somehow, he doesn't lose too much time to his fellow Finn, and they're not in a good place to try and pass, so he stays on the racing line. But he's starting to feel it now as we're seeing the cracks form underneath Pauli.
Imagine trying to wrestle an octopus in a washing machine for about an hour. This is what driving this car is all like. And at the moment, Partonen is doing just about enough to hold it again. Heavy over the curb, completely compromised the run, and almost into the back there goes Karjalainen, who is being completely held up. He's got Partonen completely rattled here in this race. He knows he's got to get a pass. The one thing he can't do, though, is find an angle of attack that allows him to get through. The apexes have been covered all this lap, despite, I would say, the waviness of this lap.
That was very close to contact between them. The last thing that Karjalainen wants right now is a little bit of aero drag on the front of his car. He wants to be a bullet to try and get past this blue number 6, but the crucial moment there, Jake, he is not as close as he was on the back half. I wonder if Partonen's maybe just a little more trimmed out.
That's something else as well that maybe you're seeing. Partonen just getting a little bit quicker in a straight line, and it might just be the way that it's working as Karjalainen finds himself stuck. The last thing that any driver wants to deal with is being stuck behind a car that's quicker in a straight line, because it makes it so much tougher to make those moves, as we saw again there through turn 2. Partonen again just has a wiggle through these hairpin style corners, and you can tell it's really costing them. We were talking about 3 minutes ago that they were 1.7 seconds back. Now they're 2.5 back of Marco Kähler.
Yeah, I think this little bit of fighting and some of the mistakes that we've been seeing out of Partonen have not been helping them. Man, he is almost pushing him through some of these corners, just getting right up there, but it's so slow on this part of the circuit. There's little he can do. Maybe if he stays close enough. I mentioned turn 12 is a possibility. The car starts to slide. He could be daring. He'll have to send an almighty dive, but he does not this time.
Nope, didn't have enough in terms of overspeed to make that happen, so that didn't necessarily work. So the opportunity was there, and it just didn't manage to manifest. So the chance then does just fall away, but there will be time again for that. And this is the key as well. They've still got 13 laps to figure out this move. It doesn't have to be done immediately. You don't have to make this pass quickly. You don't have to do everything in the blink of an eye as much as we would want to as racing fans. The key here is if you see mistakes, you can just stay there. You can just keep the pressure on until, you see a big enough mistake that causes the accident, for example.
Well, I think Isaac Snyder figured out one way through. He had a good pass. If we can get a replay here on Stefan Liboris. Had to get his elbows out there, and I don't think Stefan really appreciated that one. In fact, he might be dealing with some damage because I just saw him wiggle a little bit. But no, we can't go to that replay. Oh, as we do anyways. It was getting very close there for a second. Not missing anything at the moment. I'll keep us abreast.
I believe here we're trying to see if there is any damage here for Stefan Liboris. It doesn't look, I would say, obvious there for the JPS machine. But this is what we really see around this circuit, Joe, is that a lot of drivers here are very worried about that damage. They're going to be worried about how the car will work around. You can see he is bobbling there. That suspension really is running up and down as he goes over that section. And you're going to see a lot of drivers really trying to make sure that they're limiting that compression damping as much as possible.
As we come back live, yeah, that was the one that really threw me off, that little slide out of turn 13 from him. So back to Timo once again, and once again, he just seems to not be able to get close enough right here where he needs it, along that long front stretch, the longest straight on this track, into one of the heaviest braking zones. And Partonen keeps himself at arm's length, not allowing him to have a go. They're going to be coming down to 11 laps left next time by, and now they are starting to run out of opportunities. So he's going to have to start getting creative, I think, if he wants to get by this number 6.
But creativity can only happen if you get close enough, and he hasn't really been close enough for about 3-4 laps to make something happen. It's been well gathered up by Pauli Partonen. He's been doing a great job. I'd say as well, same philosophy applies in the battle for the race lead between T and Kähler, because they're around half a second at this point, and Kähler's not really been in a place where he can go and attack and put himself into the right position. So we're seeing it quite a bit drivers not in position to attack and to gain the places that they need. It's as simple as you've got to be in position. This is such a tough track positionally to get yourself correct.
So we're watching this. I was kind of keeping half an eye on Laboris and Snyder because they were getting close once again. And Stefan is not giving up on it. I think whatever damage he may have gotten, he is just ignoring or driving through because he's regained some of the time. And there you see the green and black number 22. That is Isaac Snyder there. They've also got Dominic Tower in amongst them. This is for the 20th position. So this is a little bit farther down the order, but just as valuable to our drivers.
Absolutely, every point matters, and I love it when we see lower area battles go and get themselves into play, because it doesn't matter if you're fighting for first or 15th. At the end of the day, we're all sim racers, and you race to have fun. If you get yourself in a nice battle, as Dominic Tower finds himself on the back of this battle with Stefan Laboris at this point in time, you'd say you're having fun, and these drivers are, and they will be at this point in time. Oh, just behind that of Schneider was Laboris there in all sorts of a wiggle there with Dominic Tower. I just think he doesn't like turn 13.
It doesn't look like it. And we see the onboard that we're getting here from Isaac Snyder. And seems to be having a little bit of issues with a little bit of a slow feed, unfortunately. So not going to be able to garner much from that one. But yeah, you're right. And Stefan seems to have real problems down in turn 13. So if I'm Dominic, I am making a mental note of that one. I'm going to try again a little bit later and see what I can do. Let's go back to our leaders, though. Marco Kayla is as close as he's been. In fact, he takes a look for the first time that we've seen in some time, but it doesn't pay off, and he falls back a little bit along the front stretch. So starting to turn up the wick, the Finn is trying to finally beat his teammate on the track.
And not only that, that was 32-1 on that last lap from Marco Kayla. He is absolutely trying every which way to find that place, and he just didn't have the line, and you actually had to correct the car through 14. That's why he lost the time again and couldn't attack in towards turn number 1. It's because he was very busy trying to keep that car pointed, and they look like these two are driving absolutely cleanly and smoothly, and there's nothing wrong. You can see a little bit of a correction into the corner. That's the scariest thing you'll ever have when you're driving a car, where you try and plant the car in, the car doesn't go where you want it to, and you have to correct before you get to the corner.
And he's definitely dropping back now, considerably farther away than he was when we first joined in on this duo. Back up to about 0.6 of a second. So 10 laps to go at this point. And Marco Kayla is coming alive a little bit. All right, closes in once more. Maybe it's this part of the course that his car really likes. Coming up towards turn 13. We've seen other drivers have troubles here. Let's see if each of them can really handle it. Trying to square off the exit, bring it across for the mirror image of that. And once again, going in shallow, Marco Kayla trying to show his nose on Andy T, but T's having none of it.
He knows he's not close enough to make a move, and that's the key. And in fact, T sets the fastest lap of the race there on that lap with a 32 flat, beaten by Kaya Leinen, who breaks the 32 barrier, goes into the 31s just behind on his element of attacking, trying to stay with Pauli Partanen. So you're starting to see here, this is where we're getting to those late stages. The fuel's going to be burning off at an even quicker rate now, and they're going to be trying to put that pressure on with these final stages of this race. Andy T has been flawless at the front. He's done nothing wrong so far in this race. Same could be said for Marco Kayla. The issue is, you're at a track where overtaking is difficult, so try and figure it out, and if you can work the matrix, so to speak, then my goodness, red pill and blue pill, you'll be winning this race.
All right, now Raccoon Racing Team is leading with a 1-2.
Oh!
A pair of them, and that's a little bit of an off from Andy T. Saved by the modern paved runoff, so he doesn't lose too much time, just racks up another incident point. And here comes Kayla, another little poke and prod down into turn 12. 13, will he set himself up again for maybe a dive into 14? Be surprised if he goes shallow again. Doesn't seem to be working out, as Andy T's been going on a wide entry just like that. Opens himself up, but it launches him off the corner and keeps him safe.
I'll tell you what was more impressive about that Andy T moment and got me a gasp there, Joe, is the fact that he was on the AstroTurf and he saved it. It's a different surface to the concrete runoff that they have around this place. And if you're managing to save the car on a surface that is not, I would say, atypical to what you've got going on right now, as you take a look at the Global SimRacing Channel replay of exactly what happened, this is just an incredible save here from Andy T. You can see the back end steps out and he's on the different kind of surface and he keeps it level. That's incredible.
That's why he has won back-to-back races at the start of this season. He said he might be thinking about going for a championship run this time. As in the past, he's been a little bit in and out, just kind of at his own whims when he feels like racing, and usually dominates when he does.
Yeah, that was a car off the road there. That was David Fuentes there. The lap traffic in all sorts of trouble. He just thrown it into the barriers there, and I think he's letting everyone go so he can get back to pits safely.
Yeah, I think he made just the tiniest of touch with the barriers. It's very gentle, so don't think he'll need to go into the pits. Should be able to carry on, and we won't have another DNF. And looking back at Henkel, this battle is getting close once again, almost getting into the gearbox of Severi Seppa. Actually, did they swap positions? Wasn't Seppa behind him before?
No, I think Seppa was ahead. Henkel's just been trying to find every way past the Walter Wolf machine on the brakes. The big right-hander of 12, and look at how he's setting up 12, trying to get a run off the exit to lunge into 13, but it's such an awkward place. He is full opposite lot, trying to keep the car pointed and planted. He definitely has pace in abundance here, does Andreas Henkel. There's a reason why he went to the World Championships at the back end of the last year, 2021. So he knows, car number 4, he's got to make a move. But once again, that lead battle as close as ever for Marco Kayla.
Henkel's trying to get on that drift spec you mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, Marco Kayla is getting underneath the rear wing of Andy T's red, white, and black number 2. Marco holding the number 3 over him, hoping that he can maybe best his teammate, get some of that valuable iRating, but more than that, get the points that he needs to try and catch him. Another slip up on the back half of the course. Same corner that we saw Andy T have a slide.
Well, here's the issue for Marco Kayla as well. Because he's been running the last 15 laps or so within a second here of Andy T, he's been scrubbing his tyres more. You get more to try and work with, and we'll catch it again here on the replay. The more that you have to work your tyres staying behind someone because you take slightly different lines, you're trying to search for where the grip is, it's so very easy for you just to fall back. And you can see here, he just over-rotates the car here through on entry. He's got to fight the car all the way through the corner. And I tell you what, he does such a great job to make that look seamless there from the outside looking in.
Yeah, another one on entry that seems to start to go on him, much like it did with T. As they now start on lap 25. Well, Marco Kayla's fallen back to 0.6 of a second yet again, and he's got to regroup and get back there as we got a little bit of a pass coming around turn 14, and that is Timothy Reed and Gernot Frische having a little bit of a fight. Reed making a mistake has put him into the clutches as Frische goes to the outside down into turn 1.
Spin in front. Jukka Tollonen's gone around it turn 1, and it's still side by side then as they go through. Frische as Reed was in the wall at the exit of 13. On that last lap, who's just trying to get it back. And this is what we say about the outside run down the hill. You get the power down early on the outside, cover the inside through turn 3. Brilliant defense by Timothy Reed. So 2 spins in the space of about 2 corners.
I think the drivers are starting to feel the effects. Oh, and that was a run off, and that is definitely going to give Frische the move now as we're taking a look. Oh, there's the initial spin from Reed there, who we just caught in the background. That was a little bit of convenience on our director's part. And then Tolonen has his down here into turn 1. Now, does he have help, or is this all on his own?
I think he does. I think he gets absolutely, I would say, swept away by Severi Seppa into the back. And very fortunate that Andreas Henkel just takes the wide line. And in fact, Henkel got the place as well.
2 for 1. And then there we see Seppa carrying the battle on. A little bit of a correction coming out of turn 2, but can't do anything to keep Hankel back. Wow, that was a lot of action. It was almost like everybody was waiting for the first domino to fall, and then people started pouncing. But we have not seen a pounce yet that has worked on Andy T, who is still about 0.3 of a second ahead of Marco Kayla.
And you have to think as well here, Joe, at this position, they've got such a level of respect for each other. They are teammates right now, and they wouldn't want to compromise the race result either at this situation. I'm not saying that Kayla won't go for the move. I'm just saying I doubt he'll go for the 50-50.
Yeah, there's, like you said, a lot of respect between them. So I think he's going to do his best to make it clean as they come out towards turn 12. He's getting closer yet again. Just picks his way forward inch by inch. Nothing doing down into 12. Now 13. The trouble corner for today's race for many a driver. And then 14. This is where the difference in line has shown itself between the pair of them, and it does yet again. So maybe this is not a look from Marco Kayla. Maybe that's just the way he feels more comfortable compared to Andy T, trying to launch himself along the front stretch. And well, it's certainly helping Andy as he takes another fastest lap.
He certainly does, but I will point out at this point in time that Kayla did have a quicker lap, but the lap was unofficial because he had an off track on the lap, Joe.
Yeah, doesn't count unless you keep it within the boundaries. iRacing makes sure of that one. All automatic on the sim here, and down to 4 laps to go now for these two. They continue to edge away from those behind them. It is up to 4 seconds now to third place, Pauli Partanen, who himself is well safe from Kari Lainen. It seems that battle is done. It is now to decide who is going to be the winner, and not just all of the podium positions. Into the little twisty bits here on the back half of the course through the natural bowl, and past the water park they go. Ooh, another little overtake here into turn 1 potentially.
Definitely looks like it, and that would be Peter Konechny, who of course is dealing with the damage, and that is Sebastian Morin making that move. You can see that front wing is trying everything to fall off at this point in time. Lunge down to the inside, and that is as textbook as it comes here at the Hungaroring. Lovely work from the Frenchman, who moves up into, lucky for some, 13th, and round goes Konechny.
Oh, Peter just had a great save. We need a replay of this one. Peter did a beautiful 360, kept it out of the wall, and is able to keep going. I'm sure he's not feeling all that great about it, though, because it definitely lost him time. Here we go, once again, through turn 4.
Yep, you can see, again, just unsettled over the curb. Back's going to step out because he had that air just rush underneath the car, and around he goes. It's an impressive 360. Didn't even have a scope, Joe.
Well, he is now down to 14th because of that overtake into turn 1. Let's see, it looks like he's got Karthik Pai behind him. Not going to even see him in the camera shot yet, so maybe he'll be able to survive to the end. And is Marco Kayla trying to make some moves? He was. Thought about it through turn 5, and despite going a little bit wide, T manages to fight another day.
Oh, T's tippy-toeing right now. I think he's trying to nurse the car home at this point because Marco Kayla is absolutely over him like a rash and is proving that he is a lot more planted at this point in time with his machine, and he's got another good run here towards 12. It's not open yet, but if he can master the run out of 12, he's got a chance. But again, T just knows where to push the car, knows where to defend, and if he's defending every zone possible, he's not going to get overtaken, and he is proving his mastery of the machine once again. And this is the closest they've been. He has to back out slightly.
Kayla chucked that one in and hoped it would stick, but had to back out to keep from getting into his teammate, and that cost him where he could have made an attack down here into turn 1. In fact, he shows himself in the mirrors. Now 2 laps to go for these drivers, and it is starting to get more and more intense. The moves are getting a little bit more wild. Hopefully this does not come down to contact.
Oh, we certainly hope not, because it would also be the cardinal sin of breaking both Rule 1 and Rule 2 of sim racing, which is don't hit your teammate. Why is it Rule 2? You say it louder if you didn't hear the first time. Up the hill then towards turn number 4 once again. And you're seeing here how it's going to be Andy T who gets everything sorted out. Marco Kayla just behind is able to stay within that section, but it's this middle sector where you just feel that Kayla's got the confidence. He's got that ability to go out there and attack. He's taking a slightly different, more conservative line that's giving himself more opportunities to go out there and attack later on through this section, the left and right, 10 and 11.
This is where he needs that great launch. He just does not have it this time. As he started to overheat those tires a little bit, these things don't run out of rubber. They tended to go the entire race back in the late 70s, but they can be abused too much, and we've seen drivers do that as he slides once again. He's going to run out of opportunities if he keeps missing his marks.
He certainly will do here, and they're coming on to the white flag lap here in iRacing. This is the final lap of the race. Andy T with a very nice buffer. I've just seen in the pits as well, Barry West, his race is over, along with Javier Mosquera, so they're both out of the race late. Kaya Leinen, 31.6, puts the fastest lap of the race on the board as he still tries to chase Partanen, but the key for Andy T right now, just make no mistakes. He's done that for 29 and a little bit laps. He's just got to do it for a few more corners, and you can see how much Kayla wants it, throwing the car in, 2 stabs to get it back to level.
Maybe he's overdriving it now, because you can see he is just not close enough with these little mistakes that he keeps making. And like you said, for Andy T, it is all about staying cool, calm, and collected in this last lap. It's going to be very tough for Marco to manage and overtake through here, especially on this part of the course. Even though he is much quicker, it'll take a move of desperation for something to stick. Not having anything work now through 9, 10, and 11. Turn 12 going to be the most likely, although 14 he has gotten close. That'll be a highly unlikely move if he does attempt it. Down into turn 13, he's staying close. He could have something. He doesn't manage it, as that was a little bit of a defense from Andy T that time. He knows what's coming. Does he once again go wide, or is he going to cover him off? He's going to cover him off. He's not going to allow him through. Little bit of a wiggle, but it is not to be. 2022 is tea time, as that is 3 for 3 for Andy T.
What a defense that was, as Pauli Partanen sets the fastest lap of the race on the last lap, how Vettel-esque, and there is Kaya Leinen throwing it in the wall at the end of the race there. Mikko Leino trying to give everything he could. Top 5 he'll be happy with, but what a race there from Andy T. I think he just knew that that was the first time he had to cover it just in case, and he did exactly what he needed to do there today. Wonderful racing up and down the order, and there's a drag race here. As Tolonen, I think, and Prix going to get themselves over the line. Has Prix stolen that one? No. He's off by 300ths.
He was so close, though. That was a good one between those two. And I think that is most of our battles as our teammates celebrate their 1-2. I'm sure they're pleased with that one. That was a good fight, a fair fight that we saw all race long between them. And yeah, the rest of our drivers are now trickling across the line, which means it's time for a short break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, so don't go away. And welcome back to the Hungaroring. Round 3 in the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series saw the same winner as the first 2 rounds, but this time it was a lot less certain. Andy T took the win by little less than 0.2 of a second. Marco Kela continuing to battle him for almost the entire race. Pauli Partanen drifted back at the end and had to settle for just a podium today, finishing in 3rd. Timo Karjalainen was P4 as Mikko Leino finished in 5th position. From there, Michael de Turk had a nice battle with 6 as Andreas Henkel tried to tussle with him. He finished 7th. Severi Seppa was able to climb, but still not a great result for him. The Finn only able to get 8th as Jukka Tolinen was 9th, barely holding off Gernot Friesche with a drag race to the line for 10th.
Timothy Reed had his spin today, 11th for him, exactly where he started this one, with Benoit Dazy in 12th position, along with Sebastian Morin in 13th. Peter Konechny finishes 14th, with Kartik Pai in 15th, along with Pablo Suarez and Thomas Buchek, there 16th and 17th. Isaac Snyder managed to get 18th position, with Dominic Tower in 19th, and Stefan Laborhi making himself the last of the drivers on the lead lap.
Fuentes a lap down in 21st. Barry West did manage to come home, but 5 laps down in 22nd. Mascara, the last one to see the checkered flag as Twica and Freckleton were DNFs today. But Andy T was once again the winner, this time having to really hold off his teammates even down to the final corner. Andy looked like Marco made you sweat a little bit today.
Yeah, for sure, Joe. I mean, I might have to light a few candles and bathe in this victory because, boy, am I sweaty after that one. Oh, he's too fast, man.
I'll talk about those last few laps, though. We started to see him make some moves, try to get his nose in there, especially at the very last corner. Did you feel confident that you could hold him back just by playing defensive, or were you concerned that maybe he could pull a fast one on you?
You can kind of just defend at this track. It's really hard to pass, and I made a tiny mistake going into the last 2 turns. And I just didn't get on the gas super early, and it checks him up, and I couldn't run away. He called me cheeky on comms after that, but yeah, it's so hard to pass here.
Well, it looked fair to me, but talk about how the cars were handling over the course of the race, because it seemed like early on you started to pull away a little bit, and then about halfway, Marco just seemed to come alive and really in. Was his car set up a little bit better towards the end on a lighter fuel load, or what was the difference?
I just think I didn't drive to my best of my ability in that last half with the pressure from him. It's so tough when you know you've got him behind you. I'm fortunate to have won that race.
Well, 3 for 3. This has been an impressive start to the season. Congratulations. Is there anybody you want to thank for this one?
Yeah, the usual crew. Hoops, you're the greatest, just the best. That's it really, man. Just the community's fantastic. You guys are fantastic. And let's all degrade ourselves in Race Le Mans next week.
All right, we'll look forward to that with Andy T taking the win here at the Hungaroring. But Jake has caught up with Marco Kela, who did his best to try and deny him another victory.
He certainly did. Marco, it just looked like in this race that if this was a track that was more open, more expansive, had places you could go and make passes on, that you'd have an opportunity to make that move for the victory. It seems like you got bottled up behind Andy today, and it didn't quite work the way you needed it to.
Yeah, it's a really hard track to overtake, and if it was another guy than Andy, I will try to make some kind of overtake, but it was Andy. I don't want to risk it for the team.
It's understandable there in terms of that, but talk about those final few laps, because it looked like every which way you tried to look, you looked inside, you looked outside. Andy had a mistake, you had a little bit of a slide as well. It seems like every time there was something there to make a move, there was always a check or a balance there that effectively meant it was going to be very even. How important is it to have that level of evenness between arguably the top 2 drivers in this field?
Of course, it's very, very important that I think I didn't make lots of mistakes over the race, so I can keep up with Andy. He's a fast guy, so it was one of my best races overall. I felt very good to drive today.
Well, if this was very good, Le Mans then in a week is going to be something of a real spectacle and challenge. Do you feel that you can take a lot of positives from today, knowing that you took it to the best, you pretty much kept the race completely honest for the entirety of 30 laps, and you've got that opportunity again next week to really try and stamp down and say, I don't want this championship to be a runaway?
Yeah, of course, I'm gonna try it, but I really hate Le Mans with this car, so we'll see what happens next week.
I mean, I've only heard from 2 people, but the answer is who doesn't at this point in time. Before we let you go, Marco, shout out sponsors, anyone you'd like to thank?
Of course, this team and you guys, and see you next week.
No worries at all then. Marco Kayla there, finishing off in 2nd position there, making sure that his race was perfect. And Joe, I have to say, what an incredible race this has been. May not have seen overtakes for the front, but what we saw was a true gritty fight.
Absolutely. Yet sometimes you don't need the overtake, just the prospect of one and the hard-earned attempt. But it looks like that Marco Kayla is going to have to try again later. The good news, as we heard from Andy, they're going to Le Mans, which means that it's almost a crapshoot. It could be anybody's game, depending on how they play that slipstream. In the meantime, we're going to close it out with a big thank you to the Lotus 79 community for coming back for another season of great coverage here. And also thank you to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp for more great work. And thanks to the team today, Jake, Rob, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media listed on the screen. Also, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. We keep a link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. The next race, as we mentioned, at Le Mans will be Sunday, January 9th. At 11:30 a.m. Eastern, but we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar, including, in just a couple hours, Big C's MX5 Challenge is back once again with Long Beach at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.